Okay, we're going to get started. And
Yeah.
I'm Brittany Johns. I'm an LMFT here at Inspired Resolutions Counseling. I also supervise our associates who are attaining their hours, so their post-master's degree and attaining their license. So does Brandon, who owns our company as well. And I work at Hoag Hospital in the inpatient chemical dependency unit. So helping a lot of families in that regard. But I do have a passion for adolescents, teens, even littles and parenting. And so does Brandon. Obviously, that's why he started the practice. And we decided to collaborate and have Leslie here.
Yes. So my name is Leslie, and I'm the marketing director here at Inspired Resolutions, but I'm also a mom. I'm a mom of 4 very young children. So I'm just bringing some life experience to the conversation. Hopefully, you guys will be able to relate to some of what I share, and I want to hear what you guys have to say too.
Yes, we're going to give lots of principles, education, but we just want this to be super interactive because it's such a fun forum. That's why I always like asking you guys what you want to talk about and just having an open dialogue. So don't feel like you can't interject or ask something throughout because we're going to give you a lot of concepts. You can just kind of pop in and it'll be really interactive. Okay. So today we're going to talk about mother's resiliency. And a lot of different concepts will be sprinkled throughout. Boundaries, 6 pillars, resiliency is major, and just how to help us de-escalate when our resiliency gets hindered, and then we start to be who don't want to start to act how we don't want to act, right?
Mm.
So motherhood is the most demanding and beautiful roles a woman can hold. But behind the smiles, behind the school pickups, behind the endless responsibilities, many mothers are quietly drowning in exhaustion, anxiety, and resentment. Who can relate to those 3 words, right? You're like, yes, all 3, right? You're juggling socializing, parenting, household duties, managing schedules. That's a huge one, right? And being a mom in life. And somewhere in the middle of all that, you start to lose yourself. At first, it's subtle. You're quicker to anger. You're more anxious. You forget things. I know that's always something that I'm like, how did I forget that? You latch onto unfair moments and replay it over and over in your mind. And you start to say, I give up. Over time, the exhaustion grows into something heavier. And what we call it is burnout. And there's the hard truth. Burnout is not your spouse's fault. It's not your child's fault. It's not even your busy schedule's fault. Burnout is ours and our responsibility to work through so that we don't reach that spot when we know we've gotten there. And because it's yours, you have the power to change it.
You guys wanted to talk about resilience, right? Let's do a little bit of vocabulary conversation here. What does that mean? What does it mean to be resilient? What does it mean to you guys?
Saying no and he can't hear. I feel
Oh,
like resiliency is just keeping that brick wall, like he's running into a brick wall.
okay. Okay. What else? Anybody else have any examples for yourself? Or I had a hard time with it too, so I went to ChatGPT for the definition. I hope you don't mind. To be resilient means to have the ability to withstand, adapt to, and recover from difficulties, challenges, or setbacks without being permanently knocked down by them. A resilient person bounces back after hardships instead of staying stuck in them. They adapt to change and find new ways forward when things don't go as planned. They manage stress and keep going even when life feels overwhelming. They grow stronger from those struggles, often learning new skills or perspectives throughout adversity. Okay. In this definition, nowhere does it mention that you will never feel pain or that you will never feel stressed or that you'll never feel disappointment. Nowhere does it say, too, that you can take on endless amounts of the poking of tasks, the household chores, the schedules, the sports to and fro, and schoolwork and meetings with the teachers, IEPs. The list goes on, right? Our job to be resilient doesn't mean taking it all on, because that's how we become resentful.
Absolutely. In the next segment, we want to capitalize on and talk about is resentment, and how we want to highlight that to you guys is like the warning light. Think about it as that. It's like that check engine light that comes on in your car. It's a check engine light for your emotional life and your emotional hygiene, right? So it shows up at the most inconvenient times, mostly, right? When you think you have it all together. And like how Leslie so beautifully explained, that one thing that tips you over the edge, you're like, that's it, right? So it's that warning light when you feel it in your body even, or you feel like, gosh, I know sometimes too for me, when you say that one last yes and you're like, that was it, the warning light's on, right? So it shows up within life if you don't have proper boundaries. So what we're going to bring to light is that resentments can be minimized if you have healthy boundaries. So resentments show up when you don't set limits, when you refuse to communicate, and when you carry expectations that can never be met. Whose hits that hard to home with that last part of the expectations? Normally it's for ourselves, right? Keeping that one more thing of expectations of self.
Yeah. How many of you have ever felt, like physically, felt yourself become resentful? Where do you feel that resentment? I know sometimes like I'll feel it right here in the upper part of my stomach. And that's when I know like, oh, I need to not respond right now. I need to just kind of go take a quick break. Where do you guys feel it? In your chest? Okay. Jaw.
Oh,
Yeah, like you're clenching, biting those words back. Yeah. I think it's really interesting how that resentment can find itself physically in our bodies, and those can be the warning signs for us to hang on, I really need to take a look at this right now.
Absolutely. So when we think about resentment, here's some examples, and you guys are hopefully having some that flash up in your mind. But the kids become the center of your marriage, and that's when you will start becoming resentful to your partner. Sports schedules take over the whole family life. You're still clinging to the version of your husband or who you're dating to what they have been in the past instead of grieving who he isn't or who they are. Resentments whisper, it's their fault, giving really like unnecessary negative self-talk. That's when you know it's coming up too. But the truth is that resentments belong to you and it's your own and you can change it. So the shift that we want to look at is trying to not to fix everyone else and start protecting your own time, energy, and emotional health. Who has some feedback of when you've actually taken the time to turn off your check engine light and kind of realize that and do something for yourself? The concept that comes to mind is self-care, but people always kind of chuckle at that, like, when does that come into play? But when has anyone had a good example of when they've been able to check themselves with resentment?
I'm not the best at it. So I have 3 kids. My youngest is 5 months. Oldest just turned 5. And my husband works longer hours. And last week, I don't even know what the kids were doing. They were just 3 boys. So they were being boys. He got home. He was a little late, which he usually does. He finally walked in. It's like 6:20, and I think I let him like eat dinner, and I just handed him the baby, and I said, "I'm going." And I just said, "I need the next hour to myself." And that was actually the first time I've done that. I was so proud of myself.
Nice.
And then,
Good job.
and then it led to a conversation about sometimes I need that night, even if it's just an hour. I just need that time so that I don't get mad at him for not being there.
Exactly. That's a great example. And the follow-up that you guys were able to have that healthy communication and set a boundary, really, that's what it is you were reaching your resentment point. What we always talk about in our practice is who do you want to be and how do you want to act? Before you got to that spot, you said this is going to be hopefully your routine now for however many days you need for the hour of the Peloton. And that's kind of your boundary. And did he receive that well?
This might also said, well, I'm also going back to jiu-jitsu 1 night a week. So
okay, there you go. That's, yeah, I kind of like that because then
too. Yeah.
you modeled that and he was able to be like, hey, I'm going to do my own exercise too.
And I think it shows the kids that, hey, we're important too. And it's important to take care of our bodies. And this is how we're doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
Good example.
Yeah.
Does anyone else coming up with any that they're thinking of?
Yeah. So today was like one of those no good, awful days. And I resented being president of this club because I was like, we have a community event. Brittany's donating her time and all the moms are no showing. And I just was so mad. And I texted Rochelle and I was like, I'm not anymore. Like, people aren't going to show. And we worked so hard. And then I was like, dude, check. Like, we're all dealing with so much.
Right.
Things were also so extra today.
Oh.
And then my husband came in and he's just like sitting at the table with me,
Oh.
One kid is smashing the other one was pushing Play-Doh, and I was
Oh.
thinking, I am gonna go to Costco now, and I'll be back sometime after mom's night out. And I like had to leave.
Yeah.
I knew that I was at a breaking point. I was like, this is gonna be hard to come back from if what I really want to say and do comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For an entire hour before it came, but it's to remove myself.
Yeah.
At that point. But like my behavior is going to be
Yeah.
worse than the children.
Right. And then you get into resentment, right? So that's a real life situation that just happened. So thank you for sharing that. Anyone else have any others before I move on?
Yeah, the first job before it, and he was like, "I job." And
So there was a lot of sacrifice at first to him become a police officer, right? Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. But yeah, that's a big shift. And that was like 5 years ago, but it came, fresh to your mind pretty quickly. Sure. Right. Okay. So what we're going to flesh out a little bit more right now is boundaries. So, and for boundaries, we like to call this the antidote for burnout. Okay.
And really quick, for boundaries, I've been working on boundaries for such a long time, and learning the purpose and the goal for boundaries was so tricky for my mom brain. Like, in my mom brain wanted to have rules and restrictions, and I thought that that's what boundaries were because I wanted my kids to behave. So it took me a really long time to learn that my boundaries were for me, not to change my kids. They were for protecting myself. So if you're still having a tricky time with boundaries, you're not alone. Years I've been working through that. So
absolutely. And it takes a lot of trial and error,
Yes.
and bouncing it off of people,
lots of
therapists,
error.
a lot of self-reflection, because the boundary is only as good as your follow through, right?
Yeah.
So it's about like I was saying, trying it, and then it's like, well, that didn't work, but what am I willing to do consistently?
Yeah.
And changing that whole perspective of they might not change, but my own psychological, everything, whatever it is, boundaries of finances, physical, psychological, will definitely change.
Yeah.
If you have that shift. But yes, many, many
I'm going to
years.
close that door really quick.
Okay.
So
So to highlight boundaries, they aren't punishment and they aren't controlling. They're protective, like Leslie had pointed out. A mother without boundaries snaps, yells, goes into insane conversations, might even have some tantrums themselves, or a teenage-like argument that is not healthy at all, right? So a mother with boundaries knows when to step back, breathe, and choose and have a calm follow through. So let me give you some examples. Boundaries with kids. This is a big one we see all the time. Refusing to argue when they're having a tantrum. Reasoning with the child mid meltdown is insane, right? It's just not going to happen. They're not able to regulate psychologically, physically. It just isn't possible for them, right?
I remember, so last night I was having my 4-year-old help me cook dinner, and it was just grilled cheese sandwiches. And I was teaching her how to hold the pan at the handle and flip it over. And she went to grab or hold the pan still, and she grabbed the pan and she burned her little finger and she cried, and I'm holding her. And my son came up and he said, "What did you learn, Brittany?" And I was like, "Bud, right now is not the time." And that's kind of how we operate too. Our kids can be mid meltdown and we're trying to have this conversation with them like, "Hey, buddy, that's not what we do when, XYZ," and they're just flailing, and we're trying to rationalize with them with our frontal lobe attached, and theirs isn't. It's just we get on these cycles of insanity, and they're just losing it. So
That's a really good example too. So instead, you would want to wait it out, right? Validate briefly and come back later when the storm has passed. And here's an example of boundaries with schedules. So learn to say no. Like I was talking about earlier, it's you'll know when you've reached your burnout and you've said yes too many times.
And
so
no is a complete sentence.
Yes. With
No.
experience.
Yes.
But just because every other family is in travel ball doesn't mean you need to be. Travel ball doesn't guarantee scholarships, but it does guarantee exhaustions. And that's just an example of Dance is a huge one. Like so many different sports. There's
Ball,
so
travel
much,
ball, baseball, even Little League.
Yeah. So boundaries with marriages. So protect small daily moments. Hold hands in the kitchen. Send a playful text. Say I love you even after an argument. You guys gave beautiful examples of what you do with the follow through after you're feeling that resentment and burnout, even in your relationships. It's about the repair in the conversations after, even if we do say things that we don't mean to say. It's about the repair and how you come back around to it and doing the small things. That's what we want to really capitalize is it doesn't have to be these massive conversations that sound great. It's little things throughout your life, showing that you love them. Boundaries transform family culture. They reduce resentments, protect relationships, and give space for joy to come back in your life. Anything you're thinking of?
Yeah,
Leslie?
I want to pause at boundaries because boundaries are just such an integral part of our daily lives. And I want to hear from you guys. Do you have something that you have a really good boundary with, or do you have something that you're having a really hard time holding a boundary with? Either or. Is that I'm doing a great job. Nobody else is. Okay, good. All right. Good job. Okay. Love that. Sleep is so, yes.
What have others done that's been successful? With boundaries, you have to follow through 1,000,000 times to make sure that occurs. That boundary will be protective for you because that's a lot to keep going through your child seeking you out in that way.
And something I've noticed too with boundaries is that if I am holding firm with a boundary with my oldest, my littler ones, they're taking note and they know, Mom's serious. I'm not even going to push that. So I feel like holding it with one kind of bleeds out to the rest of them too. That is not a clinical,
No, that's true. Consistency.
but yeah, that's just like my own experience with all of my kiddos. So
You're right. Because they pick up on that. Humans do, right?
mm-hmm.
So why wouldn't kids? Okay. So the core of resiliency, it's not magic. It's not a movie moment. It doesn't show up in grand gestures. Resiliency is built in 1,000 small daily choices. Most of them, are built out of discomfort too and learned experiences. At the heart of resiliency is the truth. You can either get bitter or you can get better. I just love that quote so much. Like it is like a mantra of mine too all the time when you're trying to not act out when your kids are pushing you. Like you had said that someone over here went poking and poking and poking. That's difficult, right? Anyone, even if you have a serious practice of meditation, that would irritate anyone, right? We all only have our threshold. You can only be so resilient. You could focus on what you lost, or you can focus on what you still have. And you can quit before trying, or you can embrace the discomfort of growth. Resilient people aren't superheroes. They're consistent. And that's what we want to really emphasize with boundaries too. Don't give up if you've tried it once. You're like, that didn't work. Like it's about consistency over time and doing it again and again and again. Patience teaches you to slow down, to stay present and stop dwelling on what you're missing and see what's still there. Gratitude fills the space that resentments once owned. Letting go of control creates peace when anxiety once ruled. So who has a difficult time even with gratitude? When we're in a moment of resentment. It's not going to come immediate. Yeah. You're like, be grateful, be grateful, be grateful. Yeah. You're like, what do I be grateful for? But it's really helpful. The practice of gratitude is huge, right? Even if it's small little things where you have to check yourself, or if you have a great practice of waking up in the morning and just acknowledging 5 or 10 things you're grateful for. I have one to give you guys that is a really helpful practice, is starting with 10 things you're grateful for a day and not repeating it for a full week, and try that out. Little things too. It really makes you think. But yeah, gratitude really helps with replacing anxiety. Anything else with that piece, Leslie?
How do you guys feel? Is it easy for you to remember all of those things that you're grateful for in those moments of resentment, in those moments of the breakdowns, the meltdowns, the chaos? Is it easy for you guys?
You're like the shame and like And then you like start to like think about it. And then you're like, I should be grateful for this or whatever.
Yeah.
I need in that, sometimes he naps for 20 minutes, sometimes it's 2
Yes.
Those times it's like, I know he's tired and he needs to go to bed, and I'm like trying to rock him, and I like feel myself getting frustrated. I'm like, come on, go to sleep. And then he does fall asleep, and then I'm just like staring at him. Saying, I was just like yelling at you 2 seconds ago. You're just sweet and asleep in my arm, So like not in the moment, but then right after, I'm like, I shouldn't have. Gotten frustrated or an
example too. And it's just about recapping and thinking about those moments like what you just highlighted, even at the end of the day, because you will gradually give yourself grace and those will dissipate if you can realize it, check yourself and say, hey, I want to do that the next time sooner, because especially with infants, right? Like they, in all ages, but especially infants, pick up on that energy. And you're like, especially, it reminds me of the whole shing thing. It's like, that's never works, but you're like, shh, shh, shh. And I'm like, who's comforted by that? You know what I mean? But somehow that became a thing in motherhood, right? So, but even with that, you just want to be mindful of that and give yourself some grace that if you just keep reflecting on that, then it will become second nature sooner. But it's nature to kind of start to feel anxiety when your baby's not going to sleep.
I think the more that we practice the gratitude, the more naturally it will come for us in those moments that are really tricky. 1 million examples just popped into my brain all at one time with all of the frustrations, right? I have 4 kids and 4 different personalities, 4 different sets of needs. And I think I do find myself too becoming like so overwhelmed, and I forget about at one point I prayed for the roof that I have over my head right now, and I take that for granted so often. And I just I forget all those little things, but the more we practice it, I think that the easier it will be for us.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Sure. This one is the 11-year-old. I like after school start. I see my friends who I want to have all the time. That's all I get. 10 minutes, maybe 12 minutes, and then we all leave. And that son of mine, Dan, and I don't mind if he talks to me, but if his voice is raised enough that we're getting the attention of the whole schoolyard,
Man,
there's zero gratitude.
yeah.
Just keep it quiet. It's almost a franticness on my end to not have people looking at us. And say, I think, well, I'm really glad that I have people here that I want to talk to.
I wonder, have you brought a snack for him? I don't know. I mean, again, not the clinical side, but for my kids, I either add water or add food. Maybe a snack might help. And then you kind of buy yourself some time and
no, I mean, I love that too, because it's just trying different things, right? If something's not working, same with boundaries, right? Be consistent, but don't try to consistently do something that isn't working either. You know what I mean?
Because you deserve that time. Like that time means a lot to you. It fills your cup when you get to talk to those other moms. And if that is your only time to be social during the day, you need that. And I think that's fair to protect. Maybe a snack would help.
Mom gets 12 minutes. Every time you interrupt me, I'm out of They do they want to go home and they scream. 1 more minute.
But that's commendable on your end that you're realizing that. Who does? I mean, no one loves to be like, my kid's acting up. This is so much fun, right? And it's us realizing I'm embarrassed and realizing those kind of aspects and acknowledging that when it's occurring, so that in that moment of self-soothing with your baby and with him, and realizing that, he does have autism, remembering that, and that you can be grateful to offer your motherhood to him, but it's hard. I'm not saying that all of this is going to be fixed overnight, but yeah, and self-soothing is not always great with food, but it does help so much if being prepared for different self-soothing for him too. But anything else within that before we go into, I want to be mindful of time too. A big part of what we want to talk about with seconding off of what we talked about with boundaries is balancing your 6 pillars. So at Inspired Resolutions, we emphasize a lot within parenting and just in life to make sure that you're balancing, putting time, effort, and energy in your 6 pillars of life. And this obviously avoids burnout. A mother must build balance through the 6 pillars. So the first one is mental health. So owning your thoughts, tone, and words, relationships, nurturing your marriage, friendships, and not just your kids. You kind of touched about that too. That's your special time, right? Your friend connection of adults outside of the home, right? So nurturing that. And, career and education. So investing in yourself beyond the role of a mom. That one always people are like, yes.
I think that one's tricky too, because if we have the moms who are at home, what does that look like for them?
Balancing the
Career and education.
It could be anything, even little. Trying to think of example. Lifelong learning, like I say you learn origami. I don't know why that popped in my head. Anything silly. It doesn't have to because people are like, I don't have time to go get my bachelor's or master's. I'm like, keep it little, like anything that excites that learning, teaching. Right. It could be who's done something like that fills that bucket of education. Even taking on the time to learn something to teach your kids, because people are always like, well, I got to do something for my kid. Yes, you want to have balance with that, but at least you're equipping yourself to then be able. So that's kind of a twofer. But who's invested time in that with like your career or education?
Well, like with my 4-year-old, he's really interested in like the human body and learning everything. Like I have a science background, and so it's like now I've had to teach myself about those things so that when he comes to me with questions, I can answer them and be like, well, it does X, Y, and Z or whatnot. You know, I've caught myself buying books that maybe are geared towards children, but more towards me so that I can learn it. And then, like I said, when he comes to me, it's like, you know, you want to learn about the kidneys? Okay, this is what the kidneys do. This is why they're important to our body. And it's just, it was so out of the blue for me. And it was like, oh my God, like I don't need these things. Like I'm going to have to figure them out now because that's what interests him. And then it's like, my other one is, he could care less. So it's like I've had to learn a whole different aspect of my life, I guess. But I enjoy it because I love science. So it's like it's pushing me to further my education of my science background, but also helping him understand his questions that he has to life instead of me just saying like, oh, I don't know, or what.
I feel like that's such a good way to also have our children learn to become lifelong learners too. Like, oh, if we don't know something, we don't just stay stuck in, well, I don't know. And that's all there is to it. It's let's go find out some more about that. Oh, mom's going to teach me. Mom knows where to find the good stuff, the information. So that's really neat. I like that.
Yeah, it's a really good example. And clearly you wouldn't want to do that if you're feeling resentful. Like I have to learn this because my kid wants to know. Like you want to keep a good balance of, gosh, I'm really curious to learn about this to then teach my child. So it's fulfilling your pillar of career slash education. So that's a really good example. Health, fitness, and nutrition. I know a lot of moms, parents are always like, when am I supposed to do that? Your Peloton example was great too. And like I said, if it's even little things of when your kid's having a tantrum, fitting that in of, okay, this is the perfect opportunity for my little walkabout. To keep an eye on them though, right? Not, bye, now I'm going to take a walk. So, and nutrition, who knows that they have struggles with this sometimes too, because it takes time.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a lot with it. That whole pillar takes a lot of time, effort, and energy to invest in that, but it's so fulfilling, right? When we actually put the time, effort, and energy into that.
Yeah, that's a big pillar because when I think about health, it's like doctor's appointments or a chiropractor or
Therapy.
Exactly. And then fitness is okay, like that's exercise. Like there's so many different aspects to this pillar. And then nutrition, the diet, the food that we eat, right? Making sure we get enough veggies in and fruits and modeling that for our kids. That is such a heavy pillar. Yeah. Every day. They want dinner every day. Can you believe it? Oh, that's funny. Well, so have you ever invited him into the kitchen and said, no, didn't go well.
He will mess something, no. He has barbecue for
It is NFL season, so I hope he's firing up that grill.
And within that too, I'm thinking of a word that's helpful is delegating. So if he loves the barbecue, it kind of will take off some of that and lessen the resentment. If we're like, well, maybe he could do the barbecue part where I make the side or something. So then that trigger word of what's for dinner doesn't throw you through the roof and you want to run away, right? And a good boundary would be, could we please all collaborate on a different word? Like
instead of saying what's for dinner?
Yeah, if that's so, it's good to kind of talk about that. You were saying, are we making for dinner is going to make you say something that you don't want to say. So like, hey, let's all think of something else we can say that would be more fun. That would be a healthy boundary that I'm thinking of too.
I love that. So my 4-year-old used to hate the shower and the bath, and we gave it a new name and we call it Tubbies. And now she just loves Tubbies because she likes to say Tubbies. So she'll say Tubbies time and, you know, kind of rephrasing these things. Really, I mean, it can change the feeling and the mood behind the task.
Absolutely. It could be even little things like that. Spirituality. So grounding yourself in meaning and perspective. And spirituality is a huge pillar, right? It could mean a lot of different aspects, not just religion, spirituality, you know, whatever fills your pillar in that regard. Hobbies. So doing things that bring joy, both alone and with others.
Who likes to do things alone? Yeah. As a mom, I think that's such a luxurious thing to go do something by yourself. In college, I would have never imagined going to go see a movie by myself or going to dinner by myself. That's such a nice time now with kids. So I don't know.
Who feels... When we touch on hobbies, I know in parenting, especially in motherhood, they're like, well, my hobby is cooking or my hobby is, but it's for someone else normally, obviously. And we want to really emphasize the fact when appropriate, it doesn't have to be every day, but to minimize the resentments and the burnout and that it's super important to have your own hobby that doesn't fit in any of the other categories, but is just your hobby that fills that pillar and start exploring new things. Be like, I don't even know what I like anymore. It's like, well, try different aspects. Your guys' group is a perfect example of that. Like it's super encouraging to see you guys do that because it feeds all of these different pillars, but then you guys with all your fun events get to explore different hobbies that you might have thought you wouldn't even done. Like you guys have so many fun hobbies you guys do. I see on your little Instagram things that's so cute. They get you trying things, right? So just being in this club is so awesome for that hobbies pillar.
When was the last time you guys tried something new?
Pickleballs.
Yeah. You guys should do that. You should set something up.
Cool. Like there's always opportunity to try to learn something new.
Yeah. Good. That's awesome.
Yeah, you guys are great with that. And then having the accountability amongst each other is really nice. Like what you're saying with this is all of us could have said, I'm not going to do that tonight, or I don't think I need to listen to that, or is that a waste of time or whatever. It's like, no, we're going to go. She's going to be there. Like, that's so cool that you guys have the accountability to try new hobbies and listen to different aspects that you guys participate in. So when your whole identity collapses into being just a mom, resentments thrive. And when you spread your energy across the pillars, burnout weakens and balance grows. Balance doesn't mean perfect. It means being intentional.
And I think something that I got stuck on at first when I was learning about the 6 pillars was that I needed to give each pillar an equitable amount of time. And that's not necessarily true, right? My hobbies don't need to take up as much time as maybe my spirituality or my faith. So you figure out what that balance looks like in your own lives.
Yeah. And taking an inventory of it, because clearly like career in some people's lives right now might clearly take more hours than other people's, but the intentional part in that is what I really want to highlight, because even if you only have an hour to invest in the fitness part of it, that's going to be your hour, right? Whereas in this season of your life, you might have more time in career, but you want to just balance it when we all know when we're doing too much work, too many yeses. And so just being intentional where you're spreading your time in those areas that might look different in seasons of your life. So I just want to point that out too. So the next concept I want to talk about is improving, adapting, and then overcoming. So motherhood rarely goes as planned. That's fun, right? Even though we have so many schedules, we have to roll with what we don't control. And if someone is on the spectrum of wanting to hold on to control, or other people where I know all of us say, I love that person because they just fly by the seat of their pants. But somehow we're all on this different continuum, right? So it's learning to adapt and letting go of what we can't control. So some of the things that don't go as unplanned that I wanted to spark in your guys' minds is kids' tantrums, marriage train schedule. The whole schedule might implode some weeks. Expectations collapse. That's a big one too. Like looking at talking to each other about our expectations of self. And I think I talked to you guys about this when one of the talks is like mommy guilt and how it's like, well, she's expecting me to do that. It's like, well, your own expectation of self kind of has to dissipate because at the end of the day, who really cares if you need to take care of yourself? Because then you cannot provide all the amazing things that you should and need to do as a mom if you're consistently pushing those expectations of self out. Resiliency means you improve when plans fall apart.
Improvise when things fall
Yes,
apart.
improvise. You adapt when reality looks different than what you imagined. And you overcome the temptations to quit. These 3 steps, improve, adapt, and overcome, become the compass for mothers in chaos. So resiliency isn't about controlling everything. It's about being creative, staying flexible, and choosing persistence.
How does improvising feel for you guys? Does it feel constant? Yeah. When baby's nap doesn't go as long as we thought it was going to go, or maybe somebody's practice was scheduled and then changed, or mom, I have a project due tomorrow, right? That's not a fun one. You just have to figure it out and adapt. And I think sometimes when we do get those last minute changes, our impulse is to take it on. But I think it's also wise for us to think, does that fit my family right now? Is that going to be our best yes? To choose that and to be flexible with that, because improvising and adapting within reason, I think, is a really good thing to be able to do. But we also have to think about our families and think about what we really need as well, because we give so much, right? Coach doesn't need us to be flexible within an hour of practice starting. Sorry, coach. I don't know. Do any of your kiddos play any sports? And man, those schedules can they change at the drop of a hat. It's pretty crazy. And our kids just expect us like, okay, well, that's when we're going to practice. That's when we're going to the game. And maybe we had other plans. Maybe we wanted to get on that Peloton. Maybe we wanted to watch a show with our spouse at night. And I think it's really important for us to really think about like what our best yes is going to be in those situations too.
The example, summer, my middle son, so stressed trying to get him potty trained because he had gotten into the district preschool. Her son's the exact same age. He would have potty trained. I was so stressed about trying to do it. And like we tried multiple times and he kept having accidents. It just wasn't working. I also have the baby, so it was just hard. And I remember I finally said, okay, I'm going to do like one last weekend. We're going to try it. And in the span of an hour, he peed himself twice and he pooped on our patio. As soon as that happened, I just felt this weight come off and I was like, I'm not doing it. We're not potty training. We're finding a different preschool, alternative. So now he's going to my gym preschool and he loves it and it's great for him. So I guess like what's sticking in my head is like, I was so stressed about it. It didn't work. We changed our plan and it's worked out great. It's honestly been fun.
I think that like falls perfectly in line with one of the topics that we haven't really touched on yet is getting unstuck from being comfortably miserable. And that comfortably miserable place, what comes to mind when I say that? Comfortably miserable. How can we be comfortable and miserable at the same time?
Normal to be stressed or, whatever. I think that I feel that a lot. But what it ties into is the way I come out of it is when I actually get myself out of the house with the kids to do things. Like when mom stuff has a play date. When I'm at home, I'm comfortably miserable. We're pretty darn freaking miserable. But when we get out of the house and go to the play date, I'm like suddenly, oh, my kids are playing with all these people. I have people to talk to, and it like it rejuvenates me. I'm like, oh, it doesn't have to be like at home where we're all screaming miserable together.
I think something that comes to my mind when I think about being comfortably miserable is we're doing our mundane day-to-day saying yes so much to things, and we just have gotten so used to taking on and taking on and taking on because that's the norm. That's what our kids are expecting. That's what our spouse is expecting. That's what the kids' teacher's expecting. Maybe that's what the PTL is expecting from us. We have all these people that we think have these expectations of us that we forget to think about like ourselves in that and what we should be saying yes to and what we shouldn't be saying yes to. And a part of getting unstuck from that, I think, is starting to learn how to say no or not yet, a no or a not yet, and get us off that vicious cycle of taking on so much and doing so much and building that resentment and staying on that cycle. Just those little no's or little not yets to help get ourselves off of that.
And your example was great with that too, of like how finally, obviously the sequence of events allowed you to decide that, but what you explained is just that release of like, okay, we're not doing this. And how many times have we looked back in life and been like, gosh, if I would have what about if the other plan would have gotten into play and then that other thing didn't pan out, right? We do have to trust blindly in those aspects of life. So that's a great example too of letting go of control, that things you were absolutely not in any control over whatsoever. That's a lot of pressure too. So much pressure. So what we want to, in our last little bit here, is leave you with is a challenge for mothers. So if resentment has been creeping in, if burnout feels familiar, here's your challenge. Grieve what you've lost, unrealistic hopes, old versions of your spouse, fantasies of your perfect kids. Set boundaries that protect your time and energy. Practice gratitude daily until it fits the cracks where resentments once grew. Embrace discomfort as a path to growth instead of hiding from it. Balance your pillars so motherhood doesn't swallow you whole. And resiliency in motherhood is not perfection. It is about perseverance, it's about gratitude, and it's about balance. And with practice, you won't just survive motherhood, you'll thrive in it. So those are the major points that we want to leave you guys with to remember. And that consistency within those principles will help you tremendously. Anything with that, like the challenge that we came up with, everyone?
Yeah, I think balance is a really big one. Finding that balance that fits your life, because it's going to look different than the balance that fits her life and her life and her life. Finding out what fits your guys' lives. And I love that you guys have each other to bounce those ideas off of, and also to give each other grace too when you know something isn't going to work out. Like, you guys get it. That's a double-edged thing because you also have each other for accountability too, right? Hold each other accountable, yes, but also graciously.
Anything else in closing that anyone had any questions, any feedback, anything else to kind of like flesh out? Because like I said, we had our concepts that we wanted to really impart on you guys, but it's a lot all in a little bit of time, but we really wanted to, consolidate and give you as much as possible. But like Leslie was talking about, yes, boundaries take a lot of time.
That's probably the one I would struggle the most with understanding what that means in actual practice.
Yes.
What does it mean to protect yourself in situations where you're going crazy because they won't sit down and do their homework and it's been an hour and a half? You know what I mean? Like, how am I protecting myself in that boundary? Really? Like, I don't know how. What would I do? So I'm not going crazy.
So I think a resource that we offer, it's a free resource for you guys, for anybody who wants to come. On Mondays, we offer a free parenting group, and we actually talk about that stuff. We talk about what it means to protect ourselves with boundaries and what a boundary looks like versus a punishment or a reward. What a boundary looks like instead of isolating or keeping that child away, like what boundaries truly are and how to implement them in our lives. So I would invite you guys to all come Monday nights at 7 p.m. It's called Hope for Parents with Struggling Teens. It's hope for parents. I don't have a teenager yet. I've been going every Monday for almost 3 years now. And I feel like finally I'm getting the understanding of boundaries and what it needs to look like for my own kiddos. So yeah, I would really recommend that you guys join us. It's completely free on Zoom. So every Monday's on Zoom. And then 2 Monday, throw that out there. And then every second and fourth Monday, it's on Zoom and in person. So we actually meet right over there. And we have this really awesome camera that's called the Owl. And you can see like the full 360 of the room. If you decide to join on Zoom, you can see everybody in the room from your computer there. So
She gave me a flyer for this,
Oh.
but I saw teens, and I'm like, well, this isn't going to help. She didn't
Yeah.
really explain the
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm glad you said that.
Yeah. Wonderful.
So I know what she was trying to say, like, you're the problem, not your kid.
Oh.
You're the problem.
Well, I think what your pediatrician was really trying to tell you is you have more control over you than you do over your child. And that's really what our group is about, is we can control ourselves. We can't control our children. Yeah.
But it's trying to like find a solution that works with the kids.
It is. But I like that. Something tangible way of like, this is the plan. Remember what we said?
And
I
they
have a
have-
timer going. It was like a very recent thing.
No, that's okay.
No, and that's what besides obviously doing something like that or having a therapist to like bounce it off of, because you have to identify what you're trying to protect, which sounds like your time and your sanity. That's what boundaries are all about, right? Is the underlying mental health. And then what you're willing to do consistently, and then trying it, and then the follow through is key. So if you're finding yourself, gosh, I did that, but I couldn't really follow through because then I gave him 35 minutes, like you're toast, right? So it's like, okay, well, let's reevaluate it and be realistic about the boundary. And it's like fleshing that out. So they're so particular, right? So, and that's what the group really helps with, and people being real about it. And then you get ideas and bounce it off of everyone. So,
and you feel less alone too. Like when you hear other people talk about the stuff that they're going through, it's like, oh gosh, what a relief. Like, I'm not doing this alone, and I'm not the only one going through this.
Yeah. What they do.
Yeah.
It's a good
I think did you have a question? I would have to like really know what was going on. Cause even though they're close in age, you know, your kids everyone is different, right? I don't know all the intricacies of what's going on. So I don't want to say something, without knowing the situation, but you definitely, I think you touch base on this too, is if you're being more lenient with one over the other, you have to check yourself with that. Like you have to, consistency is going to be key. So for the most part, you would want to, if it's a big boundary like time or things like that, you'd want to be pretty consistent with your family, but it would depend.
So an example that I have is I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. My 4-year-old can go all day without a nap and be just fine. My 6-year-old needs a nap. I don't care how old he is. I care about how he's behaving and how he's treating me and how he's treating his siblings. So my 6-year-old goes down for a nap. Does he complain about how come my little sister doesn't have to take a nap? Absolutely he does. But I need him to sleep so that we can all have a happy and peaceful night. I don't need my 4-year-old to take a nap so we can have a peaceful night. So I do think that boundaries can be specific to each child. There's something that I need to protect myself from with this child. I don't need to protect myself from that child with that. Does that make sense? Okay.
Anything else, you guys?
That's great. And then by tomorrow, I'm like, well, that didn't work. But I did find that like picking one thing. So I actually do state this, and I put it next to my bed. But then I picked one thing. So like last time I was come up with a mantra and say it when you're in the moment of rage. But if you pick one thing from tonight, and then I always apply it to something that you do daily. Like when I was teaching my kids my phone number, every time we got in the car, we did the phone number before we turned the car on. So it's something I do multiple times a day, but when it's connected, you know, it's better. Yeah. So if I say like, I'm going to practice gratitude every single night while I'm brushing my teeth, I know I have to do it for 2 minutes.
Yep.
So it's now connected to a daily thing, and it doesn't feel as big. Oh, I can't go home and do my coffee.
3 pages worth of stuff.
My husband, but I
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Cause a lot of times, even with therapy, like we have to slow people down all the time. Like, let's have 14 million boundaries. It's like, slow down. Yes, clearly we give you guys a ton of stuff to take little pieces of and I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth. I clearly know this, but try not to overwhelm yourself. I love that. Like if you take one thing out of tonight
or one pillar to focus on.
Yes. And then, like you said, keep it and keep doing it and keep going to group and learning something new. It's all good things, but we appreciate you guys so much. And I love talking to you guys and giving you lots of information.
I was late. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
Will you email us the Monday and then I can send it out?
I will do that. Do you have her email address?
Yes.
Yes.
It's an hour,
From 7 to 8.
Is it just the parents kind of like talking about different issues, or is there like a person that was leading it and they talk?
Yeah, Brandon leads it.
Okay.
So normally people be checking in about different aspects. Like if you ask that question about, I need to kind of help with a time boundary, people talk amongst themselves and then, he'll give some feedback therapeutically. Thank you guys.